What if I told you that one of the most talked about young quarterbacks in America just flipped the entire sports world upside down? Not by signing a blockbuster NFL contract, but by walking away from football altogether. What if the move everyone thought was impossible, unthinkable even, was actually a calculated master plan years in the making? And what if the man behind it all was none other than Deion Sanders, the same icon who has made a career out of rewriting the rules? Because what happened next did not just shock the NFL. It shook the global sports industry. When rumors began circulating that Shedeur Sanders had signed a staggering $175 million deal overseas, not in football but in professional basketball, most people thought it was fake. Social media assumed it was satire. Analysts dismissed it as clickbait. After all, Shedeur was projected as an NFL quarterback. He had just signed a $4.6 million rookie contract with the Cleveland Browns after being selected in the 2025 NFL Draft. The narrative was already written. His path seemed set. But then came the cryptic post. Deion Sanders uploaded a photo. No caption, no explanation. Just a proud father's smile standing beside his son, paired with a basketball emoji and a Chinese flag. That was it. Within minutes, speculation exploded. Within hours, the rumor mill was in overdrive. Within days, international reports claimed Shedeur had agreed to a 5-year, $175 million fully guaranteed contract in China's top professional basketball league. And suddenly, the impossible started to look very real. To understand why this moment matters, you have to understand the Sanders mindset. Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, is not wired like everyone else. He never has been. During his own playing career, he did what few athletes in modern history have ever accomplished. He dominated in both the NFL and Major League Baseball at the same time. He built a brand before athletes were branding themselves. He understood leverage before leverage became a buzzword. And now, as a father and mentor, he has instilled that same independent thinking into his son. So when critics say this move is reckless, impulsive, or ego-driven, they are missing the bigger picture. Because this is not about abandoning football. It is about expanding opportunity. Shedeur Sanders was never just a quarterback. In high school, he was a legitimate dual-sport athlete. Coaches and basketball programs saw potential in his handles, vision, and shooting mechanics. He had court awareness that translated naturally from the gridiron to the hardwood. But like many elite athletes, he chose one path to maximize development. Football became the focus. The spotlight grew brighter. Expectations multiplied. And the narrative locked him into one identity. Quarterback. NFL prospect. Franchise hope. But here is the truth about elite talent. It does not exist in a box. Behind the scenes, while dominating on the field, Shedeur reportedly continued to train in basketball. Quietly. Consistently. With high-level trainers. Not for headlines. Not for hype. But for development. Meanwhile, global leagues have been aggressively expanding their reach, searching for athletes who can deliver both skill and star power. When international executives see an athlete with millions of followers, a famous surname, crossover appeal, and a magnetic personality, they do not just see a player. They see a brand ambassador. A cultural bridge. A revenue engine. A $175 million offer is not just about points scored per game. It is about market influence. It is about global positioning. It is about what the Sanders name represents. Now let us address the criticism directly. Some say he is running from NFL competition. That narrative collapses under scrutiny. Shedeur has faced national pressure his entire life. Every throw dissected. Every move debated. He has competed under lights most athletes never experience. Choosing an unconventional path is not fear. It is confidence. It is autonomy. Others argue he is throwing away an NFL legacy. But legacy is not confined to one league. Legacy is about impact, influence, transformation. If anything, this move signals a shift in athlete empowerment. For decades, American leagues have dictated value structures. Salary caps, rookie contracts, franchise tags, control mechanisms. But what happens when a young star realizes the global market values him differently? He gains leverage. Imagine the strategic layers involved. A fully guaranteed $175 million deal eliminates the risk associated with football's physical toll. It provides financial security for generations. It opens doors in the world's second-largest economy. It positions him as a pioneer of cross-sport branding. And importantly, it does not eliminate future options. Athletes today understand career arcs differently. A few seasons overseas can build wealth and global influence, while preserving the ability to return home with enhanced negotiating power. That is not reckless. That is strategic. Deion Sanders understands this deeply. As a father, he has been criticized for being too involved, too visible, too vocal. But history often judges involved fathers differently depending on the narrative. What Deion has consistently done is advocate for his children's autonomy and greatness. He has spoken openly about correcting his own mistakes while amplifying his strengths. He has prepared his sons not just for games but for scrutiny. And scrutiny has arrived in waves. Traditional sports media is uncomfortable with disruption. Analysts prefer linear career paths. Draft, develop, extend, retire. But innovation rarely asks for permission. When athletes begin leveraging international markets, nil structures, social media influence, and cross-sport branding simultaneously, it changes the economic ecosystem. Consider the ripple effects. If this move succeeds, and that is a significant if, it could inspire future dual-sport athletes to explore global options. It could pressure American leagues to rethink rookie compensation models. It could redefine how we evaluate athlete value beyond pure statistics. And yes, it carries risk. Switching sports at the professional level is not simple. The Chinese basketball league, while different from the NBA, remains highly competitive. Expectations will be enormous. Media scrutiny will intensify. Performance will matter. The marketing appeal may open doors, but execution sustains careers. Shedeur would need to prove he belongs on the court, not just on billboards. But every groundbreaking move carries uncertainty. What makes this story compelling is not just the money. It is the mindset shift. For years, young athletes were told there was only one ultimate destination, the NFL or the NBA. Anything else was secondary. Now, globalization and digital media have diversified opportunity. A player can build a worldwide brand without limiting himself to one domestic structure. This is what Deion's cryptic excitement signals. He is not celebrating a check. He is celebrating control. Control over narrative. Control over career trajectory. Control over legacy design. And while critics debate whether this is genius or gamble, the broader lesson is unfolding in real time. Elite athletes are no longer confined by geography. They are entrepreneurs with platforms, data, analytics, and global audiences. 5 years from now, we may look back at this moment as a turning point. Either it will be remembered as a bold experiment that redefined cross-sport mobility, or as a cautionary tale about overextension. But regardless of outcome, it represents courage. Because it takes courage to walk away from expectation. It takes courage to absorb criticism. It takes courage to choose uncertainty over comfort. And perhaps that is the most prime-time element of all. Now the real question is not whether Shedeur Sanders can succeed overseas. The real question is whether we are ready for a world where athletes redefine success on their own terms. Is legacy about rings? Or about revolution? Is greatness measured by tradition? Or by transformation? The Sanders family has never asked permission to be unconventional. They have never waited for consensus. They move first. They adapt fast. They bet on themselves. And in a global sports economy worth billions, that mentality may be the ultimate competitive advantage. And here is where the story becomes even more intense, because the decision itself was only the beginning. The real storm started after the announcement. Sports networks began running emergency segments. Former players debated the move with visible frustration. Social media split into two extreme camps, those calling it visionary and those calling it betrayal. But behind all the noise, one thing became clear. This was bigger than one contract. This was about power. When Shedeur Sanders reportedly finalized the overseas deal, insiders suggested it wasn't a rushed reaction to draft positioning or criticism. It was a contingency plan. A strategic alternative that had been explored quietly for months. That revelation changed everything. Because it meant this wasn't emotional. It was calculated. Meanwhile, Deion Sanders remained calm, confident, unbothered. While critics attempted to frame the move as desperation, Deion framed it as destiny. In interviews he emphasized preparation. He spoke about teaching his sons to think independently, to never let institutions define their ceiling, to understand that value is not assigned, it is negotiated. And that is where the tension truly lies. Professional American leagues operate within rigid financial systems. Salary caps limit flexibility. Rookie wage scales dictate earning potential. Franchises control contracts for years. For decades, this structure has shaped how athletes enter and navigate their careers. But when a young star realizes his market value may be significantly higher elsewhere, the traditional model begins to look restrictive. International leagues understand branding differently. They view American athletes not only as performers, but as gateways to global audiences. In emerging markets, star power is currency. Visibility drives sponsorship. Personality drives engagement. A player like Shedeur does not arrive alone. He arrives with millions of followers, endorsement leverage, and built-in attention. And attention is the most valuable asset in modern sports. Back in the United States, executives quietly took notice. Some NFL insiders reportedly questioned whether this would open the door for future prospects to explore overseas leverage before committing domestically. Could this become a negotiation tactic? Could elite dual-sport athletes use global offers to pressure American franchises? The mere possibility created discomfort. But for Shedeur, the focus remained simple: performance. If he steps onto that court, expectations will be enormous. Critics will be watching for mistakes. Supporters will be celebrating every highlight. The pressure will not disappear, it will multiply. Yet pressure is something he has lived with his entire life. Being the son of a legend means every success is questioned and every setback amplified. This new chapter simply changes the stage, not the spotlight. There is also a cultural dimension unfolding here. American sports dominance has long shaped the narrative of success. But the globalization of basketball and football is accelerating. Streaming platforms broadcast games worldwide. Social media erases geographic boundaries. Athletes build fan bases in countries they have never visited. The idea that greatness must exist within one league is becoming outdated. And this shift represents a generational evolution. Young athletes today are entrepreneurs before they sign their first professional contract. They understand digital monetization. They study brand equity. They analyze international markets. They see themselves not just as players but as businesses. In that context, Shedeur's decision, controversial as it may be, aligns with a broader trend toward independence and diversification. Still, the emotional weight cannot be ignored. Football fans imagined watching him develop into an NFL franchise quarterback. They envisioned playoff runs, rivalries, Sunday night lights. That dream does not disappear quietly. It creates frustration. It fuels debates. It sparks endless what-if conversations. But careers are not built to satisfy public fantasy. They are built to secure personal fulfillment and generational security. And that is perhaps the most powerful theme emerging from this entire saga. Ownership. Ownership of choice. Ownership of narrative. Ownership of risk and reward. If Shedeur succeeds overseas, if he performs at a high level, builds commercial partnerships, and thrives internationally, it will validate the boldness. If he struggles, critics will claim they warned him. That is the reality of unconventional paths. They offer higher ceilings and sharper scrutiny. Meanwhile, Deion stands firm, reinforcing a principle he has always lived by: bet on yourself. Throughout his own career, he ignored doubters. He thrived in two professional sports. He built a brand that transcended statistics. Now he is watching his son attempt something equally disruptive. And disruption rarely feels comfortable in real time. What happens next will define the narrative. Training camp footage. Preseason exhibitions. First professional game highlights. The world will dissect every possession. Analysts will compare him to established players. Financial experts will analyze endorsement returns. Every angle will be examined. But beyond performance metrics, this story represents something deeper, a shift in athlete psychology. The understanding that opportunity is global. That identity is flexible. That tradition is optional. The next chapter is unwritten. Will this decision ignite a wave of cross-sport exploration? Will American leagues adjust compensation structures to prevent talent migration? Will young prospects begin negotiating with a broader lens? Or will this remain a singular, daring experiment? One thing is certain: the conversation is no longer about whether this move happened. It is about what it means. And as the spotlight intensifies, as expectations rise, and as the world waits to see the outcome, one truth remains undeniable: this is not a passive career. This is an active strategy. The game has changed. And just when the debate seemed like it could not get any louder, another layer of the story began to surface. One that shifted the conversation from shock to strategy. Because what most people still fail to understand is this: this move is not simply about switching sports. It is about redefining leverage in modern athletics. As training footage from overseas facilities began circulating online, fans noticed something different about Shedeur Sanders. He did not look like someone experimenting. He looked focused, intentional, locked in. The workouts were structured. The footwork drills were sharp. Shooting mechanics were repetitive and disciplined. Strength sessions emphasized explosiveness and lateral agility, skills that translate seamlessly between quarterback play and guard play on a basketball court. This was not a publicity stunt. Behind the scenes, international marketing campaigns were reportedly already in development. Apparel collaborations, documentary content, streaming partnerships. The branding machine was not waiting for tip-off. It was accelerating. And that is where the true magnitude of this decision becomes clear. Because professional sports in 2026 are no longer confined to arenas and scoreboards. They exist across platforms, digital ecosystems, global sponsorship networks. And when an athlete with a built-in audience relocates internationally, he exports influence. Executives in American front offices began privately discussing the implications. What happens if future top prospects start exploring global offers before entering domestic drafts? What happens when overseas leagues, backed by powerful investors, decide to compete directly for crossover athletes? For decades, American leagues have operated from a position of assumed supremacy. But globalization does not ask permission. It creates alternatives. Meanwhile, Deion Sanders continued doing what he does best, controlling narrative without over-explaining. His public statements were measured. He praised preparation. He emphasized faith. He spoke about empowerment. But he refused to engage in defensive debates. That silence spoke volumes. Because confidence rarely feels the need to justify itself. The criticism, however, intensified. Former players questioned commitment. Analysts suggested distraction. Comment sections overflowed with doubt. But what critics underestimated was the psychological component of this move. Shedeur has grown up under scrutiny. Every success attributed to his father. Every mistake magnified. He understands pressure differently. He has been conditioned for it. And sometimes, the boldest move is not chasing expectation. It is escaping its limitations. There is also an economic dimension that continues to unfold. Fully guaranteed contracts eliminate the most brutal variable in football: injury uncertainty. Quarterbacks may avoid frequent hits compared to other positions, but the risk remains constant. Careers can change in a single play. Financial security removes that anxiety. It transforms performance from survival to expression. In basketball overseas, the physical toll differs. The branding freedom expands. The global exposure multiplies. But make no mistake, this path is not easier. Switching professional focus requires relentless adaptation. Different conditioning rhythms. Different tactical reads. Different locker room cultures. He will have to earn respect from teammates who have dedicated their lives exclusively to basketball. Talent opens the door. Work ethic keeps it open. And that is where legacy is truly built. If he excels, the narrative will pivot from doubt to admiration. Analysts will reframe the move as visionary. Commentators will call it ahead of its time. Young athletes will study it as a case example in career strategy seminars. If he struggles, the critics will amplify their voices. They will frame it as arrogance. They will call it miscalculation. They will say he abandoned tradition. But what remains undeniable is this: he chose. And in professional sports, choice is power. The deeper this story goes, the clearer the generational divide becomes. Older models prioritize loyalty to system. Newer models prioritize ownership of opportunity. Neither approach is inherently wrong, but the tension between them is shaping the future of athlete mobility. There is also the possibility, one many overlook, that this chapter is not permanent. International contracts conclude. Opportunities evolve. A return to American leagues, whether in football or basketball, remains within the realm of possibility. But if that day comes, it will happen under different circumstances. It will happen with enhanced leverage. It will happen with global credibility. It will happen on his terms. That possibility alone changes the power dynamics of negotiation. Teams that once assumed control may reconsider their approach to elite prospects. Because once a player demonstrates willingness to walk away, the entire equation shifts. And that is perhaps the most disruptive aspect of this entire saga. Not the money. Not the sports switch. But the message. The message that elite athletes are no longer confined by geography, tradition, or expectation. They are global assets navigating global markets. They are brands balancing performance with positioning. They are decision makers, not just draft selections. As preseason headlines begin building overseas, anticipation grows. Ticket sales reportedly spike. Merchandise pre-orders trend. Media outlets schedule exclusive features. The experiment is about to become reality. And when the first professional game tips off, it will represent more than points on a scoreboard. It will symbolize a crossroads in modern sports culture. One path clings to tradition. The other embraces transformation. Only time will determine the outcome. But history often favors those willing to challenge assumptions. And right now, whether you love the decision or question it, one thing is undeniable. The game is evolving. And the Sanders name is once again at the center of the storm. If this story challenged the way you think about athlete careers, make sure you subscribe and stay locked in. We are going to track every development, every performance, every ripple effect this decision creates across football, basketball, and the global sports business landscape. Drop your opinion in the comments. Genius strategy or unnecessary risk? Would you take guaranteed generational wealth overseas, or chase the traditional NFL path? Let's have that debate, because whether you love it or hate it, this is a moment that could change the future of sports forever.